Yeah, I think today's 71. Um, share screen. Okay, so Ayin Aleph. Ayin Makesh Ros Adam Afilu Rosha. You should not seek to see a negative, something bad happen to people, even the person's in Russia. Rosh Amuzal, like Chazal say, Yitam Chotim Enksiv. It doesn't say Yitam Chotim that the sinner should cease. It says Yitam Chatoim. The sin should cease. There's a famous story in the Gemara Brachas that by Meir wanted to daven that his enemies who were wicked people should be eliminated, and Brewer told him that no, you don't daven for them to be eliminated, but that they should do tshuva. It says Yitamu Chatoim V'lo Chotim. I believe there's this. They say this is what I heard once, and I don't know if it's true, but they say the Munkatcher Rebbe, who was very, very anti-Zionist, and evidently had very negative things to say about them. They asked him once about the Gemara about Yitamu Chatoim V'lo Chotim. He said, "Who says we pass like Bruria? Pass like Ray Meir." So Yitamu for that the Chotim should be hated. But anyway, this is the Tzadok also has his own approach here. There's somebody who's evil towards Kodesh Baruch Hu, somebody who commits religious sins. So we don't want to be eradicated. We want his sins to be eradicated. Avarala Brios, but somebody who is bad to other people, who's a wicked person towards other people, his punishment is corresponds to his sin. You're allowed to ask for bad things to happen to that person, which is an amazing statement. So Tzadok says there's one difference between somebody who commits religious sins, ben adam lamokim, so commits social sins, ben adam chavera. Much matzino belisha, like we find belisha, the navi, shekilu anorim, he cursed the children. It's a very disturbing story in Tanakh, of course, where Elisha cursed certain children, and they were the Arim Chazal say they weren't actually young. They were nasty people. They were perhaps immature is the word to use, but they were uh, people with negative traits. Neshem Sizlu, because they made a mockery of him. They scoffed at him. Why? So it says Tzadok, in order to explain that story, which I said is a disturbing story on the face of it, it says if Elisha healed the waters. There was a town which had bitter waters, and Elisha made the waters better, that they were sweet. He sweetened them, and then these people, according to Chazal, were cursing Elisha because they derived a parnasa, they derived their livelihood, and I guess they got rich on bringing water from other locations to this location. So therefore, now that Elisha fixed the waters of this place, it deprived them of their livelihood, even though it made life amazingly better for the people who lived there. But they were upset because their personal gain was now eliminated by Elisha. So they really wanted people there to suffer so they can make money off of them. Chazal say them therefore he was permitted to curse them. And David Melch, when he cursed his enemies in Kapitel Kuftes and Tilim, Pirei he explains to Shayu Marim Lo, because they were bad to him. V'amar Vayav Klola, they loved to curse. Apparently, they cursed other people. V'Taveu, and that should come upon them. Mida Knega Mida. Mida Knega Mida, meaning corresponding to what they did. Hashem says, those people curse Klai, so they'll be cursed. Not people curse Hashem. Hashem says, I'll take care of myself. But people, you curse you, Klai Yisrael, I will curse. But otherwise, Hashem does not curse a person. Come, nevertheless, says the Tzadok, you know what? Even though theoretically this is okay, Elisha Nanash. We also find Elisha was punished on this. I was like, he lost his Ruach HaKodesh. because he cursed those people, even though they're bad people, even though P. was allowed to. Even though I'm sort of saying you're allowed to curse people who are Rala Brios, who are bad, Chaberu. It was an Hedrin. Besides that, not everybody can do this. So Reb Tzadok is curtailing the heter he gave to daven for the elimination or the punishment of bad people who are bad to other people, and saying even then it's very highly limited, and Elisha was punished for it. And he said, and even that, not everybody can do this. So Elisha, say Chazal say by Elisha Vayreim, he saw. What does it mean? He saw them. Rosh Ein Chule. It says that Elisha, very like it says something about Moshe Rabbeinu when he killed the Egyptian in when he went out and saw the Egyptian hitting the Jew. It says he made sure to look in all future generations prophetically and see that no good person would ever convert from descendants of this Egyptian if this Egyptian lived alive, and then he killed him. So too here, Elisha prophetically with his nevuah looked at and saw that nothing good would ever come even of the descendants of these wicked people, and that's why he was able to had to kill them. So not everybody can do this. Somebody does not have ruach hakodesh. Somebody does not have this kind of nevuah. Perhaps his personal interest is blinding him, and he wants to curse his people, even though they don't actually deserve to be cursed. So you have to be very careful. Also, Midmar, Omar Pasuk, in that same capital, he talks about cursing his enemies. He says, Pasuk, V'libi chalal b'chirbi. He says, my heart is empty inside of me. Chazal explained this. He destroyed he killed his Yetzirah. Why does he say that, David Melch? Right? It seems like, okay, if you kill the Yetzirah, don't tell us about it. It's gaiva. It's arrogant. Why are you mentioning it? So he's saying that, so he's explaining. What right do I have to curse them? He's not concerned with that he has only any vested interest, Nagia meaning a personal interest, that for his own desire that he's doing this in order to fulfill his own interest, opposed to ridding the world of bad people. Because he already eliminated his Yitzhar. It happens to be that the whole that after he came to Kosh Baruch and said, "Listen, you could test me. You'll see. I eliminate my Yitzhar." Hashem said, "Yeah, I'm not. It's not going to work. You'll see. You didn't eliminate your Yitzhar." And then they had the story with Bathsheba. But David HaMelech at this point thought he eliminated his Yitzhar, and therefore he has this thought to do this. He must do it to Shem Shamayim, and therefore he can go ahead and curse these people. So the of Kohen Mizmar Zen Amar Mizmar Shabo Pasuk Li Gilad. I have Gilad is to me, even though Gilad is a place where there are many wicked people. Hashem says it belongs to me. Shmena Darshu the Sheru Shumos Per Chelek. From this, the people who darshaned the Rishumos, Reb Tzadok speaks about elsewhere. Darshan Rishumos means that everybody has a roshem, an impression. I don't know, it's not necessarily the right word. A mark, a residue, a significance of good, and that everybody, even people enumerated who have no chayk olam haba in Sanhedrin, also have a chayk olam haba. So why is that mizmor come before the mizmor which David HaMelech curses be a people? So because the Darshim Shumos, they're able to see the good, and they made an effort to see the good, even in the most wicked people in the world. Even the people Chazal say, the Darshim Shumos say, no, even they have Chelek Olam Haba. They had some good in them. This is similar to that which it says that Kosh Baruch Hu places the healing before the punishment in a different way than we normally understand it. Normally, one understands that Kosh Baruch Hu puts the healing before the punishment, and therefore, even when the punishment comes, the healing can follow it relatively quickly. But here, Tzadok says it's a slightly different way of looking at it. He says similar to that idea. You have to first look at people and try and find the good in them, and try and find why they have some positive aspect to them. Then, if afterwards you nevertheless curse them, also a mishpat, then it's appropriate. but you have to go through all these precautions ahead of time, including if they're even they're people who you think have shamnuche kolam haba. You need to look and see. Perhaps there is some slight residual good within them, which could be their reason to have a chayil kolam haba, and only if you find absolutely no such good, like Moshe and Elisha found in the people who they respectively killed, then you can say, okay, you can daven for that person to be eliminated. And only that, of course, as you said before, it's been on chaver, not been on lamakom. So basically, Tzadok is saying, yes, there are web times in which people should have to be eliminated, but the such situations are few and far between, and only after you made every effort to see the good in them and try and see why Akash Baruch Hu has them around and what possible positive purpose they can serve. It's a very nice piece. Okay, I'm base. Efshar Lasos Movsim is a very, very fundamental piece. Let's look what you have in the chat here. About saying of secret. How do we discern between legitimate justice and subconscious personal revenge? It's a good question. About Tzadok was not about Musar that he's necessarily asking that question. So if you're about Musar, then you, especially if you're Navardica, you probably also impossible, and therefore you're basically in. It's not possible for you to actually make that distinction. But Chazon Ish, in his famous machlekes with Navardik and the Muna B'tachon, he holds that person can actually be completely objective. So I don't know myself if I could ever be completely objective, but the Chazon Ish holds it's theoretically possible, and there are people who can do it. Can one neutralize the evil of a sin without desiring their downfall? You can. The Bruder said, daven. That's what you have to do. Daven a lot. See if it does any good. At least try. In any event, you can try and first perhaps get other people involved and maybe even the government involved rather than dive and then to curse them, which is dangerous to yourself because then you're bringing prosecution upon yourself by saying, okay, I'm worthy to curse them. And of course, Bo says, oh yeah, let's see. You can try some other normal human courses of action. Everyone's kavanah transfer nature of a curse into a blessing or a sin. Uh, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I assume that I'm not sure what whatever kavanah you have is what kavanah you have. I don't know exactly how to address that. Okay, the 72, which in Duya contains Kabbalah essence, would be grateful if you can answer one. How can one innovate Torah without egos? As words open the true gates of divine light rather than distort reality? Just have to try your best. Person learns, even a person doesn't always learn Lishma. A person is immersed in Torah and enjoying their learning at that moment in a way which is not a personal smugness, but a joy of feeling connected to the material that he's learning, not even connected to Hashem, but connected to the material he's learning, then the odds are that he can do something really Lishma and have some significant positive impact in the world. Not just, and if you're holy enough, it can make a miracle thereby. Most people not, obviously not that holy, but many people can be mechadesh lishma if they actually are completely focused on the Torah they're learning when they're learning it. Does pure prayer transfer and with the divine will? Does it uncover the hidden ratzon? Or is this beyond your perception? Of course, the latter. It uncovers the hidden ratzon that always exists beyond your perception, obviously. Number 3, how does the depth of Torah learning transform a person's very being into a channel for divine miracles without active intention? I don't know what the question is. Person learns Torah Lishma. They connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Torah. They connect to Lamas Yonim through the Torah. So therefore, of course, that Torah has an impact. Okay, let's go to the piece itself. Efshar says, "Mopsi ma'id al pi Torah." You can do. Let me see if it's a new chat. You're welcome. Torah can do miracles to Torah. Kach you come face Moshe Rabbeinu Shalom. These are all the miracles Moshe Rabbeinu. Shpasel Shar Chodesh b'Divrei Torah. Opened the new gate in Divrei Torah. Pi also or b'Divrei Torah. And based on that light which he opened in Divrei Torah, in Shach Shvias or Ba'olam, there was a flow of light into the world. Which affected that thing. This is something which he speaks about in many different places. We'll come to it again. V'efshar associate tefillah. You can also speak about make the miracle through Torah, through tefillah. I'm sorry. Tzim b'neviim shebasipra akasu kam mufti shel Leo shel Elisha. There are lots of miracles done by Leo and by Elisha. B'zulas mishar neviim lo these come of same. The other neviim, their miracles are not mentioned. It's interesting because Leo and Elisha, we have almost no nevuos from them, but we have lots of miracles. And the other neviim, we have lots of nevuos, but no miracles. So obviously, in the earlier generations, which Leo and Elisha represent, of nevuah, they didn't nevuos were not necessarily recorded for later on because they dealt mostly, as he's going to say, with contemporary issues. Shmuel also was one of the greatest of all time. We have no real nevuah, very few nevuahs from him. So we have the one about Shaul losing the Mucha. We have the nevuah about David becoming king, but very few nevuahs. So that's what he says. Chazal say nevuah which is necessary for generations. Was in down lo nichtaba. And nevuah which is not written, necessary for generations, not written. But now there's sort of this great insight, amazing statement. Can occur some sipurim moifsim. So we don't tell miracles now, right? If you don't tell nevuah, that says you need it for doros. Kosh kain moifsim. You don't tell moifsim. That's the doros. There's a famous statement, I believe it's from the Alter Rebbe from the Baal Tanya, that he says that in the Mezritcher Maggid's base medrash, there were buckets of miracles under the benches. But none of us had time to take the miracles out of the buckets. So this idea, in other words, in Judaism, we're not impressed by miracles. The Torah itself tells us by Navi Sheker not to be impressed by miracles. Who cares? You can make a miracle, big deal. Lots of rebbes make miracles, and we don't care that they make miracles. We don't become chassidim of those rebbes just because they made a miracle. So it's a very nice thing to make a miracle. It's a nice trick. It's even a holy trick. But it's something which doesn't determine whether we should follow somebody, not follow somebody, and it's not really significant for long term. The Chassidim make a big deal out of moifsim, but our perspective is moifsim don't indicate that a person's derech is the right derech. They indicate a person has a certain tzidkas which allow them to make a miracle. That doesn't mean that derech is the right derech to follow. So and the Rambam in his famous paragon of this idea. Paragon is the wrong word. Paragon usually speaks about a person, but his classic source in this idea says that that we don't believe in the Moshe Rabbeinu or Hakadosh Baruch Hu on account of Moifsim. We believe in them accounts of the Matan Torah, which wasn't a Moifis, it wasn't a miracle, it was a revelation. So these must be necessary for generations. Not be sure, be sure. Why? They're temporary. Why are they told? Because they open gates, which remain open. All of his moifsim came by Torah. This amazing statement. In other words, he paskined things, and then that brought the miracle. The derech mashal, you read us. He was the fact that the fire came down at Har Carmel to his mizbeach was because of his chiddush in Torah that he allowed. It was a Rosh Shah, normally not allowed. Weren't allowed at that time in the Beis Hamikdash resisted to sacrifice korban outside the Beis Hamikdash. Eliyahu came and said that he had Mesorah that. You can, if it's Hara Shah and Navi it's a temporary measure, which Navi has to do, then you're allowed to do it. And this Chiddush, which he brought down to the world, that Chiddush brought down with it the fire, which accepted the korban. So that is a Moifes al pi Torah. Tzadok elsewhere says that any Chiddush in Torah changes the world, makes it a different place, physically, not just spiritually. So there's this idea that the Torah makes the miracle. But Elisha is similar to tefillah. And evidently the Navi wants to tell us by bringing down the Moifsim, Elio and Elisha, that there are two types of Moifsim which you can affect. And you should know, this is true for all times, if you're on the right madrega, that something you can do make miracles by Torah and miracles are tefillah. Elisha did this by davening. Zachal he pishnai Eliyahu, and he was zoiche to twice as much as Eliyahu Nabi was zoiche in terms of his accomplishments. Chazal say he was mechai two mace, Eliyahu was mechai one mace, but it probably means much more than that. Because tefillah is much more powerful when it's effective. It's so the tefillah, which is much more direct and much more arousing of rachamim in a direct way. That's its feels called rachamim. It arouses rachamim. So therefore, it can be much more powerful. But there's the flip side. But that which is done by Torah has a lasting impact. Whereas once that chiddush comes down to the world and that Torah changed the world, that remains the new shape of the world. It doesn't change back again. So you see it in learning too. In simple, and once there's a chiddush of a new way of learning in the world, like Reb Chaim Brisker brought down a new way of learning to the world, that remains in the world. It doesn't revert back again. From subsequent generations, they all learn based on Reb Chaim. There's revolution, which is not discussed now. But in any event, so there, something which change will be Torah changes forever. But same page changes based on tefillah. That's it could be a more powerful change, but it's a temporary change. It reverts. There's you leave somebody who makes a miracle by tefillah. Somebody changes it with tefillah. It's temporary. It's chayishah, not chayolam. I just told you. So it speaks about this elsewhere. So let's see tomorrow. I'm not going to do it today, but he speaks about it and. Simin Tzaddik, and Kuf Yud Ches, the Kuf Yud Tes, Kuf Ayin Ches, Tzaddik Ches, Kuf Pei Dal, and Reish Tes Zayin. Okay, so if anyone wants to look it up now, you can look up, or we'll get there eventually. Tzaddik, that's out of order. Tzaddik, Tzaddik Ches, Kuf Ches, and Kuf Tes, Kuf Ayin Hey, Kuf Pei Dal, and Reish Tes Zayin. So there are plenty of places where Tzaddik is going to come back to this idea. And he... like I said, he elaborates in that. Um, just have something here in my note, which I wrote. Basically, what I just said. Okay. Okay. So as I said, it's a Mamik Yov, and eventually we will get into deeper depths because it will come back, recur over and over again. So you ask, so when performing miracles, Torah innovation is the true goal of revelation, Torah truth itself, miracle being an incidental outcome. For us, yes, but not for Elio. For Elio, they came together. Somebody in our Madriga where we don't know how to make moifsim really. So therefore, whatever moifis happens is indirect for us by definition. But Elio Novi, obviously, he was in a Madriga where his miracles came simultaneously and in a unified way with the Chiddush and Torah Mechadish. So somebody on a very high Madriga, presumably if you're the Gra, something like that, then you could do that even in later generations, but not us today. Okay, good stuff today. Have a great week. We'll be in touch. Take care.